Welcome to World Questions Hungary. Right now, this Eastern European country is at a crossroads. It's been governed for the past 15 years by the right-wing nationalist Prime Minister Viktor Orban. He opposes Western military aid to neighbouring Ukraine and has strong political and economic ties with Russia. He's also a vocal ally of the US President Donald Trump. But all that could be about to change. With an election just months away, his grip on power appears to be under threat. Prime Minister Viktor Orban is being challenged by a new political leader with a new political party. And with me to debate some of the many questions we've received from across the country on issues such as corruption, democracy and the rule of law and foreign policy is our panel. András László is a member of the European Parliament representing Viktor Orban's governing Fidesz party. Welcome, András.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. Timea Szabó has been an MP in the Hungarian Parliament since 2010. She's a member of the opposition Left of Centre Dialogue, the Greens party. Good to have you, Timea.
Good to be here, thanks.
Boris Kalnoky is a former foreign correspondent for Die Welt newspaper and head of the MCC Media School in Budapest. Thanks for joining us, Boris.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you. And lastly, Zsuzsanna Szelényi is a research fellow at the CEU Democracy Institute and author of the book Tainted Democracy, Viktor Orban and the Subversion of Hungary. Welcome, Zsuzsanna.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's go to our first question. It comes from Kati.
Which party will be the winner in Hungary in the election of 2026? And how can Hungary stay out of the war and prolong peace?
Which party, she asks, will be the winner of the election in Hungary? And how can Hungary stay out of the war, that is presumably the Ukrainian war, and prolong peace? Kati cannot be with us. She is someone who's very much in favour of the current Prime Minister Viktor Orban, and she fears that the country will be dragged into the war in Ukraine. Opinion polls suggest a pretty close race between the governing Fidesz party and a new challenger, TISA. We invited TISA to come on the programme, but they declined. András László from the governing Fidesz party. Which party will win, and how can Hungary stay out of the war?
Thank you for this question. This is the million-dollar question, of course, and at the end of the day, it's the Hungarian citizens who are going to decide. But I think we are the favorites, Fidesz and the Christian Democrats, our alliance. We've been in power since 2010. I think we are the favorites at this election, too. We have a proven track record of the last 15 years. And I believe in this uncertain times, which is the changing international scape, the changing global power balance. Is in such a situation, the best choice for Hungarians is obviously an experienced and internationally respected government, which we run since 2010. The international attention to Hungary is putting really Hungary on the map, on the international map of politics. And I think these are all advantages we can use. And I think the Hungarian citizens will understand that despite some issues which they are unhappy with. We are not perfect, of course, but I think we are the safe bet and we are the better choice.
Is Kati right to connect this election with the war in Ukraine? I mean, she specifically asks, how can we stay out of the war and prolong peace? András?
Well, in this sense, when it comes to the war in Ukraine and staying out of the war, this was our promise in the 2022 election campaign. And we promised that we would not send weapons and we would not let weapon deliveries go through Hungary into Ukraine because that would involve us in this war. We've kept this promise, and I think we can further keep this promise because now also in the United States, we have a government which is keen on bringing an end to the Ukraine war. We can, and we have a good relationship with the American administration. We can further develop this. And I think we can bring together a peace deal, which should work for Hungary as well, which should work for the whole of Europe. Unfortunately, this is not necessarily what most European leaders want. They're blocking efforts for peace. They're asking for conditions which are unrealistic in ending this war. but I think we're closer than ever. And the fact that there was a change in Washington is a major step towards peace. If we get reelected, we will definitely do everything to stay out of this war and avoid any kind of steps which would further escalate it.
Andras, thank you very much. Timea Sobol from the Greens.
I couldn't disagree more with Andras. First of all, I do think that there is a very realistic chance now to change the government. I do believe that TISA will win, and this is exactly what all the polling agencies have been showing in the past, not only a few weeks, but months, and this is what they're still showing. I do believe that Hungarian people are really sick and tired of the government's corruption. They're sick of watching our European money being stolen, how we are lagging behind all other European countries in terms of economic performance, when it comes to inflation, when it comes to the deficit. We have a record high deficit. People are sick of this. Also, when it comes to the Ukrainian war, we've never been in war. This is exactly what Viktor Orban is trying to convince people of falsely. Hungary has never been in war. Russia attacked Ukraine. Vladimir Putin attacked Ukraine. No other European countries have war, including Poland and Romania. Obviously, Viktor Orban has been trying to keep threatening Hungarian people with this.
Timea, thank you very much indeed. Boris Kalnoky, a journalist and academic. Which party will be the winner of the election in Hungary, and how does that play out with Ukraine?
If you had asked me in the summer, although even then I said I see Fidesz winning, but even I was beginning to have my doubts, because indeed most of the polling was showing a big advantage for TISA. And the mood, if you talk to people, the mood was indeed not advantageous for Fidesz. Over the past few months, things have changed. One is, what is the biggest problem on people's minds? In summer, it was corruption. That's not good for any incumbent. Now it is cost of living. Still not very good, but better. In the summer, 55% of people responding to polls thought that Péter Magyar was a credible candidate as a prime minister, and that has dropped by December to 42. That's an incredible drop in numbers.
Péter Magyar is the leader of the new party.
Yes. Thank you for pointing it out. And the third thing that changed, although the polls still see TISA in front, at least the left-leaning polls, but now a majority of respondents say they think Orban is going to win. And if you look at what happened in the American elections, the same thing happened. All the pollsters were saying Kamala Harris was going to win. But if asked who they thought was going to win, a relative majority of people began saying Trump, and that was a clear indicator that he would indeed win the election.
Boris, thank you very much indeed. Zsuzsanna Szelányi, academic and author.
So obviously, Hungarian elections are running and this campaign with a very, very high stake. And we don't know who is going to win until the election day. And the chances for TISA party, the opposition party, are massively more advantageous. It's clear that a majority of Hungarians are not supporting the governing Fidesz party any longer. We know only not from polls, but a lot of various social research. However, it does not necessarily mean that TISA party can win, because we are just entering a political campaign, and also because Hungary is not a liberal democracy where political parties are competing with equal chances. We are run by a state party or a party state. Basically, the Fidesz party for 15 years are using state resources for partisan purposes. It's funding its state institutions. It's changing the rules constantly. For example, election rules were changed in Hungary almost 30 times in the last 15 years, just this year 2 times. So the competition is highly unequal. In order to receive a simple majority, Fidesz requires only 45% of popular votes, whereas any other opposition party or bloc would need 55%. So the electoral system is highly distorted. So it's not only just funding and access to state media, but it's also the election rules are basically supporting the leading Fidesz party. So therefore, even if TISA is leading the polls, and we deeply can believe that most of Hungarians or majority of Hungarians are not backing this government any longer, Fidesz can still win. Now on the war. So Hungary is not in war, and there is no one threatening Hungary with war. So all kind of propaganda about war is unrealistic. I don't think anyone in Hungary specifically have to worry about any traditional war or worry about our sons are taken to war. It's completely unrealistic and irresponsible. However, we have to prepare for other kind of problems.
Thank you very much. Boris Kalnoky, you wanted to come in very briefly, if you would.
If we take it figuratively, the war question, then I think Kati may be onto something. I very earnestly believe that if TISA was to win, that they would agree to allow the Ukraine to join the EU. They would join all the EU policies to finance, arm, and help Ukraine in a general way. They would contribute to it with Hungarian money, and that money would come out of the pockets of Hungarian citizens. I think that is what would indeed happen under a TISA government, and that is what Kati may be afraid of.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to move on to the next question. Our next question comes from Tibor. Your question, please, to our panel.
I'm Tibor from Budapest, and my question is, how can such a corrupt government remain in power for so long?
Thank you, Tibor. The question, how can such a corrupt government stay in power for so long? A little context. The non-governmental organisation Transparency International writes of systemic corruption and continuous decline in the rule of law in Hungary. $1 billion of EU funds have been frozen because of concerns over corruption, whilst another group, the Sustainable Governance Indicators Network, describes corruption as endemic. Boris Kalnoky, journalist and academic, is Hungary corrupt?
There is corruption in every country, and certainly we have it in Hungary as well. One particularly disgusting case was a mafia of court bailiffs getting organized to rip off people on foreclosures and the likes of that. But these cases are being prosecuted. It used to be that women, after giving birth, would have to pay so-called hálapénz, it's gratitude money, to doctors, and doctors would insist on getting that. And that has, in fact, been banned by the government and more or less disappeared. So on the everyday level, for everyday citizens, average citizens, I believe corruption has disappeared. What we do have is EU funds being used in another way than they were used before the Orbán government. Before that, it used to be that the EU would give money to the tune of 4% of GDP, and that money would then flow back to Western European companies via state contracts. And Orbán actually stated that this is not good. It really matters how much money stays in the country. And so this government started a policy of trying to direct more money, more EU money, to Hungarian companies. At the same time, there was a policy of building big Hungarian companies that could compete with Western multinationals on the global market. So all these things together are regarded, especially by European media and the EU institutions, as corruption. But I think it's not so much about it being corruption, it's rather that their interests are being hurt.
So forgive me, when what are relatively respected non-governmental organisations talk of systemic corruption, endemic corruption, you think they are misinterpreting what is going on in Hungary?
No, I think what they are calling systemic, it indeed has a system to it, but it is what I have just described.
Right. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Zsuzsanna Szelány, academic and author. The question, how can such a corrupt government stay in power so long?
So corruption is really an interesting issue in Hungary, because Hungary is an illiberal state. Viktor Orbán named his regime as illiberal state. And one of the key features of illiberal states is that they don't believe in state neutrality. So the Hungarian government for 15 years basically believes that they are the winning dominant party, so they own the state. And this is one major policy of Orban's government, as Boris Karnoky mentioned, to basically build a Hungarian business network, saying that there are too much Hungarians' money is in foreign hands through foreign companies, so let's have money in Hungarian hands. And the government built up over 15 years a new business elite, which is closely linked to the government, actually the governing party's elite. The problem is these Hungarians, there's not all Hungarians, but a small circle of Hungarians. So over 50 years through canalizing EU funds, specifically huge infrastructure funding to the hands of just a couple of people. We are talking about dozens of people who enrich themselves extraordinary. People become very sensitive to corruption because it is visible how a few people become extremely rich. So that's the problem. And I think this is why for a long period of time, for a decade, basically, corruption, which was there, was not so troubling. But now that we have an economic decline, it's now for 5 years, we had 80% of food price rise in the last 5 years. So it's everyone realized this, that Hungary's economy is going bad. Now the corruption suddenly become a serious political issue.
Zsuzsanna, thank you very much indeed. Timea Sobol from the Greens.
They can remain in power because they've demolished all the checks and balances in the country. All the independent institutions are now in Fidesz's hands. They filled up all these positions with their own cronies. The Constitutional Court, the State Audit Office, etc. All those institutions that could reverse any of the corrupt decisions by the government. So there are no checks and balances anymore. There's no rule of law anymore in Hungary. And this is why also the EU is freezing some or has frozen some of the funding that the Hungarian people should have received. Also, it's because they've seized the vast majority of the media. The Hungarian government and its companies own over 1,000 media organizations in Hungary, almost all the news television channels, all the nationally broadcast radio channels that you can, for example, listen to in your car. They've owned portals that show kitchen or food recipes, and it's significant because these government ads pop up and the propaganda pops up even when you're trying to cook something, not only when you're trying to watch the news. And of course, they find based on falsified charges. They find all the opposition political parties. They persecute them. I was under surveillance by the national security, the intelligence services, for who knows why. It was completely illegal, but the government never denied that they did this. This is how they can remain in power. Now, as to corruption, yes, Zsuzsanna is absolutely right. And as you mentioned before, Hungary, for the third time in a row, by Transparency International, the corruption index, for the third time in a row, they are the most corrupt country in the European Union. All European countries are ahead of Hungary when it comes to clean governing. What you say, even Burkina Faso, countries like Burkina Faso, Ghana, Moldova are ahead of Hungary. Hungary has lost because of corruption for good, irreversibly, 2 billion euros in cohesion funding already. And that should have gone to the Hungarian people. But because Orban and his cronies, we as Hungarian people cannot get the funding anymore.
Let me ask András László from Fidesz Party to respond to some of those points, particularly the accusations that are made from beyond Hungary that there is systemic and endemic corruption, not just by non-governmental organisations, but by the EU's own anti-fraud office, which has brought more actions against Hungary in 2023 than any other member state.
Well, there's so much has been said already, but
Indeed.
so let me put it this way. I cannot react to each and every point,
No.
but let me put it this way. The corruption accusations have been the number one accusation and the number one communication of our opponents since day one. And yet we have been reelected in 2014, 2018, and 2022. So obviously the majority of Hungarians don't share this view. We've had record years in last couple of years in foreign direct investments. So foreign direct investors, economic players who bring here their own money to invest, they are not worried. They invest more and more. In fact, we've just heard that Mercedes-Benz is increasing its manufacturing and its capacities in Hungary, and we're bringing new investments all the time to Hungary. So obviously, the economic players also have a different view than the political propaganda against our government and against Hungary. This also shows that this kind of criticism on behalf of the Hungarian left is very shallow and very little, because they have campaigned on each and every election on this issue, and they have failed each and every time.
You deny clearly that there is systemic or endemic corruption. You point to the fact that
Systemic corruption was invented as a term because they couldn't point to specific corruption cases. In fact, if you think about all of the criticism against Hungary in the last couple of years on corruption, we have the most scrutinized public tender system in the whole of the European Union for this specific reason. They look at each and every small bit of regulation. We are on the agenda in the European Parliament almost every month on the plenary session. No other country is as scrutinized in the European Union as Hungary. And yet, they rarely can point. And when there is a corruption scandal in Hungary, it's the Hungarian authorities who uncover it and take action.
I want to go back to Tibor, who asked the question, who says himself he has direct experience of corruption, but does not wish to go into the detail because it would identify him. Tibor, what do you make of what you have heard?
Actually, Kálnoky and Laszlo doesn't even deserve a reaction. Really, they are just telling propaganda. And I really agree with the ladies. Actually, there's only one thing I would like to emphasize, that young people really disagree with the government and they don't like the way they govern our country, and that Hungarian people are not equal with the government.
Tibor, thank you. Thank you very much for your question. Our next question comes from Nicoletta.
I'm Nicoletta from Budapest. I'm a Hungarian mother, and I have a question about LGBTQ plus rights. Because we all know that in Hungary, LGBTQ plus people, especially trans ones, are facing daily hostility and hatred. Trans community have also lost access to essential healthcare, and they cannot change their names because it's banned. Who will protect them, including children, in an increasingly authoritarian system, and how?
Thank you very much, Nicoletta.
Thank you.
The question in brief: who will protect minorities, LGBTQ plus minorities and children, in what Nicoletta describes as a growing autocracy? In 2020, a law was passed preventing people from legally changing gender. It also makes it difficult to access trans-specific healthcare. Gay pride marches have been banned, although a very large one did go ahead in Budapest last year, and what is described as the promotion of a gay lifestyle to under 18s to children has been also banned. Boris Kálnoky, academic and journalist, the suggestion from Nicoletta is that there is extraordinary pressure on minorities and that there is not enough protection for them.
I don't see it in my personal life. We have gay bars in Budapest. We have pride demonstrations that do take place. The laws that you mentioned obviously were passed. The positions of Nicoletta are not shared by a vast majority of the population in Hungary.
Can I just press you a little bit? I mean, first of all, this issue of gay pride marches, it did happen last year. It was technically against the law. And you make the point that these may be popular measures, but they are, by many people's standards, illiberal.
Well,
And
if
democracies
it's
exist
against
to
the law,
protect minorities
that
as well
needs
as to enforce the will of majorities, don't they?
democracies exist in order to recognize what is the will of the people, what's in the interest of citizens, and to turn that into policies. We have seen Western countries passing laws that enable children of 14 years old to change their gender without parental approval. In Britain, we have seen that it's possible to have operations to change your gender, and you can't turn it back. So I think it's deeply irresponsible to support such policies personally. Now, in terms of what the law says, that is a matter for the courts, and it's interesting to look at the reasoning of Hungarian courts, even in the context of these gay marches, where the courts argued that it's not so much the Pride March itself; it is a display, open display, public display of sexuality. And I'm pretty sure if we had heterosexual marches in Hungary where everyone is half naked and acts in a provocative way, there would probably be a law against that too.
Doris, thank you very much indeed. Susanna Ceilani.
So it's a question that goes into the very heart of this regime. It's also very typical for illiberal states to support closed societies. So what does this mean? It means that a resistance for social change, which are perceived like non-organic. And therefore, state powers and illiberal state powers use state institutions to force their norms to the majority rules for basically everyone and repress or push back minority rights. We've seen this in Hungary for many years. And of course, the anti-gender mobilization is one of the key kind of flagship project of illiberal states in the name of pushing back this social change. The gender ideology is really prevalent, and of course it creates a lot of harm. And it's really interesting to see that in Hungary, women, gay people, LGBT people, and the trans people are all handled under the gender ideology as one. Hungarians went to the streets with 250,000 people against the law last summer because the Pride demonstration was banned, but it was a huge demonstration against the government's will. This is where the Hungarian tolerance level is at the moment.
Susanna, thank you very much. András László from the governing Fidesz party. The suggestion from our questioner is that the rights of minorities, LGBTQ+ in particular, are being stripped away. Is that right?
No, it's not. And this whole issue is massively exaggerated on the political scale. In fact, if we look at the organizations who promote the Pride marches, who promote this issue, they're also very significantly funded by the EU and the American left, and they were funded by the Biden administration. This whole woke agenda, not only the transgender issue and gender ideology, but other issues as well, were funded from abroad and brought in artificially into Hungary. We have a couple registration regulation back from 2009 before we took office, which allows for registered partnership for gay couples. We never touched it. We didn't abolish it. We didn't do anything with it. We have all of the anti-discrimination laws in the new regulations we have adopted, in the new constitution we have adopted. We've never touched on these rights. They're guaranteed on the highest level, just as before. But we have to separate the issue of LGB and the rest of the letters, because the rest of the letters are mostly made up social constructs which are imaginary. They're ruining the lives of thousands and thousands of young people, and we do not allow that. We say you can do in your sexual life whatever you want, but don't make it public, and don't require the whole of society to recognize whatever your gender thoughts are by making it legal. That's why we only recognize men and women in the Hungarian constitution, and that doesn't exclude, of course, gay people.
Gay people in Hungary are not allowed, as I understand it, to adopt children. What is the thinking behind that ban?
The thinking is that the interest of the child comes first, not the interest of the gay couples. The most important thing is to have a stable family with a father and a mother.
Andras, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Timea Soba from the Green Party. The question about protection of minorities and children.
Yeah, the government's view and actions on this have been really, really vicious and inhuman and just purely evil. And it's also cynical because we know that they're using LGBTQ groups as scapegoats to shift attention away from other domestic issues, such as healthcare that we talked about before. That, for example, that Hungary has the highest death rate of cancer and heart attacks in the European Union. But on the other hand, unfortunately, there are real steps by the government that harm these communities. This infamous so-called the paragraph 33 that I think Nicoletta was also referring to, that deprive transgender people from all their rights. And it is a problem. It harms lives. I asked the government, I think a year ago, and I got a response, how many people have requested so far for their children to have a sex change operation. And guess what the answer was? Zero. It's a non-existing issue. They're just threatening Hungarian people. They're using this as propaganda to brand people as enemies in the countries, which is really like it's from the medieval times. Also, it's interesting that Boris mentioned that gay people have rights because there was a Pride demonstration. Pride demonstration was held despite the law that actually banned it, and it's because Budapest Mayor Gergely Karácsony was brave enough to convene 300,000 people, the largest ever, according to some calculations, even more, close to 500,000, the largest ever anti-Orban demonstration in the history of government. And when it comes to transgender people, it does harm their life because, for example, when they're trying to get a document in a state office, because of the picture that they must use, it doesn't look like them. So there is confusion, there's problem. They can't get their own documents. They can't get healthcare. We have close friends, family friends, a gay couple, 2 women who are raising a son, but only one is allowed to register to be registered as a parent. So if the child gets to the hospital and if the registered mother is sick and she can't go to the hospital to give medicine or to visit or pick up their son, the other one cannot go because she is not officially not a relative. So it affects your children.
Nicoletta, what do you make of what you have heard?
It's very ironic that Andras talked about propaganda funded from abroad instead of talking about people. For example, my children were never funded from abroad, nor were they influenced by any propaganda, because we lived in the countryside, in a village. We raised them with right-wing values. And
Nicoletta, sorry, just to get some context, your children are gay?
So I have 4 children, and I have 2 gay sons and 1 transgender.
Right. Okay.
So 3 of them came out. It's also ironic, or funny that the gentleman speaks about child protection when the biggest scandals of the current government are related precisely to child protection. So I find this whole rhetoric dishonest and hypocritical.
That's it for World Questions Hungary. A big thank you to our panel and to all the questioners who contributed to this fascinating debate. And thank you for watching wherever you are. I'm Johnny Diamond. Goodbye.